is a human, but he is definitely an animal.
We're all a bunch of animals. Davina, what about you? Do you want to do this episode? Do I have consent
Oh, I'm
to
sorry.
do this episode here?
I misunderstood. I'm sorry, Rob. I thought you were talking about a dog, not your kid.
Oh no, you're good, man. No worries.
I'm kind of deaf. My bad.
No, no, dude. Yeah, don't even worry.
I mean, it's true for kids too. So yeah, yeah.
Did Davina fall asleep?
Mm.
Davina, do I have your consent to run an episode with you here? Davina. Hmm. Okay, because consent is mandatory, I'm gonna go ahead and drop her down into the comments.
I
If anybody
love
else would
that,
like,
Sledge. I've never heard your voice do that, and it brought me visceral joy.
oh, thanks. Yeah, if anybody else in the comments would like to come up and join in the conversation, we're going to be having a little bit of educational about ancient fascist symbology or symbolism in Western architecture and forms of government. Um, yeah, give me just a second. We'll get this thing started. I can come up. I don't know. Oh, that's fine. This is educational information. And then I ask questions to see how y'all feel about it, or what your thoughts are. But feel free to come up if you'd like to. So welcome everybody to an in-between episode of Interviewing Humanity. We're between seasons right now, so this is going to be Between the Seasons episode 2. As always, I'm your host Sludge Knuckle, and today, we're going to step through the disgusting marble gates of history itself, because every empire leaves breadcrumbs along its way, and it's usually carved into stone and etched into marble and hidden in plain sight. When we talk about fascism, most people picture jackboots and rallies, but fascism didn't die with dictators. It was architected into the institutions that survived after them. Our modern capitals are not neutral in this. They are living museums of imperial thinking, spaces that have been designed to remind you of your place in society. From Rome's fasces to Washington's columns and Mussolini's fascio to modern federal seals, and from Nazi eagles to corporate logos, the aesthetic of control has never gone away. It just simply rebrands itself. An authoritarian symbolism is seductive. You've got clean lines, symmetry, power through order. It's the illusion of stability and the comfort of hierarchy. But if you start tracing the visual DNA of Western architecture, you'll find Rome's shadow in literally every Capitol dome. You'll find Mussolini's marble in every civic plaza. And you'll find the geometry of domination polished into democracy's facades. We built temples to liberty that look suspiciously like palaces for kings, and we raise obelisks for freedom that mimic pharaohs' tombs, and every courthouse has been framed by Roman columns that still whisper, "Bow before the law." So today, we're going to ask, how deep does the architecture of fascism run in our so-called free world? And what do these symbols really mean? And who benefits from keeping them sacred? Because if architecture is propaganda, then the Western world's greatest propaganda might just be its own skyline. So first, I want to talk about the echoes of empire and Rome's invisible footprint. So every empire thinks that it's new, but every empire uses the same exact theme. And they don't start with laws or armies, they start with the architecture. Rome didn't just conquer land, it conquered perspective and thought. It taught the world how to build power into stone, and how to make the human spirit feel small in the presence of columns and domes. When Rome fell, its gods died, but its architecture lived on eternally. It went underground, buried beneath the marble of cathedrals, the foundations of capitals, and the dreams of every nation that ever wanted to look eternal. And the Western world still kneels before Rome, and most people don't even notice. Every column, every dome, every marble step under your feet carries Rome's fingerprint. The ancient discovered that form could rule just as efficiently as law. A tall column says this space belongs to something greater. A dome says you are beneath something divine. This is the architecture of submission disguised as a beautiful place. Rome perfected the visual grammar of eternity. Arches that imply strength, and symmetry to suggest divine order, marble to signal immortality. The language didn't die, it was canonized. Come on up, Snorlax. Give me just a minute, I'm getting through this opening part. The fasces, which is a bundle of rods around an axe, was Rome's symbol of unity through violence. A single stick breaks easily, but a bundle bound together resists fracture. The axe protruding from the center reminds you what happens to dissenters. And here's the part that makes you stop breathing for a second. You will find that fascist symbol carved into the marble walls of U.S. Senate, embossed in dime coins, and framed in a Lincoln Memorial. Shit, it's even stamped into police insignia. The word fascism comes from the Roman fascis. What was once a warning has become a watermark for our society. I did take a bit of drama when I was in school, but... And Rome isn't gone. It's just been federalized into our future. When Pierre L'Enfant designed Washington, D.C., he didn't imagine a city of citizens. He imagined a city of emperors. Its avenues radiate like spokes of the Roman Forum, converging on domed monuments that mimic the Pantheon. The Capitol Dome and the Jefferson Memorial, the Supreme Court, and even the layout of the National Mall all echo Rome's imperial vocabulary. These spaces aren't just symbolic. They're psychological. They frame your gaze upward and not forward. Every step between the Capitol and the Lincoln Memorial feels rehearsed in a way because it is. It's the stagecraft of it all and not city planning. The axis of power runs straight, and the sight lines are perfect, and the hierarchy is clear. Citizens below, monuments above. Rome's architecture was built to make obedience feel natural. Washington's architecture refines that obedience into reverence. See, Rome built temples to gods, and America built temples to governance. But both were designed to make the institution feel eternal. Empires can crumble, but blueprints will stick around forever. Architecture outlives mortality. It transcends regime changes and outlasts revolutions because stone is the perfect storyteller. It forgets nothing. Even after the fall of Rome, its forms were repurposed. The Vatican carried its arches into the church. The Renaissance revived its geometry for kings. Colonial powers stamped it across the globe as the signature of civilization. By the 18th century, Rome's imperial vocabulary had been retranslated as neoclassicism, a softer, sanitized empire for the Enlightenment period of humanity. But make no mistake, those same columns and domes still whisper the same message: hierarchy, permanence, and control. If you look closely at any Western capital today, London, Paris, Washington, Berlin, Brussels, each is a palimpsest of empire wearing democracy's face. Rome's power didn't end, it just evolved into a bureaucracy. The Senate became Congress, the Forum became the Plaza, and the gods were renamed Founding Fathers. And the architecture still commands our silence. We call these buildings sacred. We call them symbols of freedom, but freedom doesn't need marble, it needs access. Every column that you pass beneath is a sermon, and every dome you stand under is a doctrine. The Empire of Rome never fell. It just learned how to file paperwork. So, first question for this segment, and I'll take this to Hatch. Why do we keep rebuilding symbols of empire under the banner of freedom?
I am so glad that you even phrased it in that way. Okay. So, the psychological and sociological pressures that are inflicted by oppressive architecture are one of the 6 main cornerstones of fascism. For fascism to create root and take root, to make a society of the oppressed who oppress themselves at your beck and call, they must live in an environment where these actions become natural to them. And so we have to create that environment around them, whether it's through good morning, Alex. I'm super happy Mom.E1 also. We live in a society where for one of the okay, this is a complicated thought. Let me put it in the shortest way I can. Recently, I said something vicious about Pritzker. I said the way he's acting is the way an abused woman acts in a relationship. And I didn't actually say it. I parroted my wife. She said it. And she was her original thought. And she was so true that I parroted it immediately and then stole credit for it because I'm a middle-aged white guy in America. Anyway, that was a joke. So in this case, we are anthropologically looking at the Masons designing our country behaving in this fashion. The world is a cruel place, and you can be abused by not a person at all, by an environment. If you've ever frozen or starved, you know exactly what I mean. In this particular way, those who have shaped civilization, the aristocrats who have sat in position of powers, these upperclassmen who have made decisions that have affected the lives of the masses, with or without the permission of the masses, have all been coming from a place of trauma that has led them to a place of hatred and a need for control. Many of the people that I know that have been through trauma, one of the hardest and most crucial steps for them to take in recovering from that trauma is finding a way to feel a sense of control over their own life and self-agency again. And if not channeled in the proper ways, this can lead to controlling and manipulative behavior of other people. And we see this exhibited in the physical architecture passed down through the United States. Everywhere from the roaring lions set outside banks telling you that we are the leader of the pride and you are not. Or all the way down to the pigeon spikes next to the sloped bench that you can no longer lay on in the subway or the park. You can see the intent of a hurt person hurting other people for seeking their own control. But it's more than just this, because that would be a valid reason, and they don't have a valid reason because it's more than just this. They get a taste for control, and it is addictive. It is a drug to be high on the power you and influence you have, and to want to create a system where you can hand that to your immediate family and make sure that they never become the downtrodden, because people are going to do this no matter what, right? So we're going to build it into our architecture that we are the ones on top. And we will make it a clear message for anyone who leans against our walls, tired with a pack upon their back. We invite them here, cold and tired and weary and poor. We intend for them to stay that way so that we can be the richest country in the world. I land my plane.
Thank you very much, bud. Let's see. Rob, did you come up? You did. Okay, cool. So Rob, my question for you is, can architecture be democratic if its roots are built in imperialism?
His roots being like the architectural like inspiration,
Mm-hmm.
or are you talking about like how
So,
oh
like
what's
for
the word,
so
how like
for
go on.
example, on the screen here, you see the fascists, right?
Yeah.
This symbol represents three different artifacts. It represents the rods that were used to beat people. It represents the leathers that were used to flog people, and it represents the axe that was used to behead people. It is a symbol of capital punishment.
Oh damn. That that sounds pretty fascist to me. Um, but yeah, like with certain yeah with stuff like that, absolutely, especially with certain things like you were referring to like the uh the Roman gods are dead and we lifted up in their place like our founders. And there's a painted ceiling. I don't know what building it is at the Capitol, um, but it's called the Apotheosis of Washington. And apotheosis is, if I recall correctly, is entering godhood, like being exalted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is just like this Michelangelo type painting, um, of like of Washington surrounded by just women ascending into heaven. And like so I don't know, that's not really architecture I guess, but it's art on the architecture, just more symbols of this mythology of America, I guess. That's I don't know, that's just the thought I had when you were reading your prompt.
Okay. Thank you very much, bud. Um, Gus, I'll ask you the same question that I had asked Hatch. Why do you think we keep rebuilding symbols of empire under the banner of freedom?
I mean, I think that there's this sort of ingrained idea that comes with it that if sorry, I haven't fully put my thought together yet,
No, you're good, bud.
but it's the notion that like we can only achieve like this mythical freedom um, by having control and structure, and like that's I think it's something inescapable as long as it stands. Personally, it makes me want to tear it down.
Yeah, I share your sentiment. Thank you very much. Brand, got a question for you. What message does the U.S. Capitol actually send when it's mirroring verbatim Rome? Brand?
I'm pondering.
Chat, if you guys would like to come up
Can
and
you
join in
repeat
the
once more?
conversation. Yeah, absolutely. Chat, if you guys want to come up and join in the conversation, go ahead and send a request. I'll have my mods bring you in. Yeah, the question is what message does the U.S. Capitol actually send when it is verbatim mirroring Rome?
I mean, it sends the same fucking message as Rob. You know what I'm saying? It hierarchy, power. It's the same message that has been sent by the rest who use that symbol and use this type of architecture. I mean, it's I don't know. I can go a lot of my brain is running with a whole bunch of um, yeah,
Okay.
control, power, just not natural,
Yeah.
not like not like
It's
how this world likes it.
Yeah, it's very bizarre to see something that we claim has been gone for a long time be at the very foundations of our structure. Welcome in, Eng.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, it's going all right. We're talking
Hey.
about the architecture of authoritarianism that is inherent in Western civilization.
You're talking about those fascist stick bundles?
Well, that's one of them, yeah. So I'll ask you one of the questions I was asking somebody else. Why do you think we keep rebuilding symbols of empire under the banner of freedom?
Well, if you go back to the founding fathers, they were using like the ancient Greek um, theories to kind of just trick the public into supporting them. The lofty idea of we're we're for the people, and when they were really anything but for the people. They were just rich white slave owning aristocrats who just wanted to take power for themselves instead of sending taxes off to the king.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for this next part, I'm going to talk about the language of domination, specifically through geometry, symmetry, and the sacred lie of order. So there's a reason power looks the same everywhere. The geometry of empire transcends borders and languages and even ideologies. It's the shared religion of control. Authoritarianism doesn't always speak with guns or laws. Sometimes it speaks with blueprints, and it always speaks in straight lines. From the plazas of Mussolini's Rome to the courtyards of DC, from Versailles to endless symmetry to the sterile uniformity of modern campuses, power is drawn with a ruler and not a paintbrush. Because order looks like safety, and safety sells obedience. Symmetry soothes the human mind. It feels predictable, balanced, and eternal. But in the hands of tyrants, it becomes a cage built from comfort. And when you walk into a perfectly symmetrical space, whether it's a cathedral, a government lobby, or a courtroom, you subconsciously yield to it. Your body aligns itself with the axis of power. You are centered, but you're not free. And that's the secret. Symmetry isn't just aesthetic, it's behavioral. It teaches the body to obey form before thought. Versailles was designed for awe and not access. Speer's Zeppelin field in Nuremberg was designed for synchronization instead of spontaneity. And the Pentagon, the ultimate symbol of efficient domination in the Western world, it's an unbroken circuit of hierarchy rendered in a geometrical pattern. To the eye, these spaces say order, and to the subconscious, they whisper submission. The sacred geometry once used to honor the divine has been repurposed to sanctify the state. Pyramids, domes, obelisks, once channels between mortals and gods, are now instruments of governance. Ancient architects believed form connected humanity to creation, and modern governments use the same geometry to connect citizens to bureaucracy. The dome used to symbolize heaven's vault, and now it's the ceiling of legislative chambers that make laws about who gets to live under that sky. The obelisk once honored the sun, and now it casts a shadow over every protest on the National Mall. Mathematical order has replaced moral order. Precision has become moral value, and when perfection becomes political, imperfection becomes a crime. Authoritarian geometry offers comfort to the eye, but control to the system. Every measured line is a leash, and every right angle is a command you're going to subconsciously follow. Why do fascists' aesthetic appeal to us? It's because they give us order in a world that feels chaotic. Minimalism tells us that emptiness is peace, but that is a lie that has been sold to us in glass and steel. Power learned that the easiest way to control people isn't through fear, it's through comfort. If everything is neat, polished, and predictable, you stop asking questions. Fascism in architecture doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be beautiful enough to get you to ignore it. The sleekness of modern courthouses, the brutal simplicity of police precincts, the uniform calm of corporate campuses, They all share a lineage, the design of obedience to the system. The fascist architect doesn't sculpt dictatorships, he sculpts eternity, soothing symmetry, silent dominance, and polished oppression. We've been taught to associate symmetry with sanity and geometry with truth, but maybe the mess, the asymmetry, the imperfection, maybe that's where freedom actually lives in humanity, because chaos isn't the enemy of order. It's proof that we are alive. I'll start off with Gus for this one. What's the difference, in your opinion, between order and oppression?
I mean, I would say that in a limited way, the difference would be consent. But I mean,
Fucking
I think
hear,
that they,
hear. Hear, hear. Yes. Sorry, continue.
I think we also have like a current very human problem though, that once you get above a certain population or a certain area of managed land, that consent can't be found unanimously.
Okay.
And I don't think that that's like a forever thing. I think that it's a problem that we have right now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much,
I
bud.
wish we could grow past that.
Yeah, me too. Thank you very much, bud. Eng, why does authoritarian architecture feel beautiful?
Oh, well, that's an interesting one. I had wanted to comment about how they kept mentioning how the straight lines and
Mm-hmm.
makes people feel comfortable, and I wanted to throw in that it's security, safety that enables that comfort to it gives the impression of security and safety, and that's what people psychologically are craving first, in front of comfort. And so I think beauty, like, that may be linked with that that we have some kind of psychological need to feel safe, to feel comfort, and that's where if you have a society that has the capability of making a straight line, then it goes to think that you have a society that can protect you, that can help everybody to survive, even if it can't really.
Okay. Thank you very much, bud. Brand, I'll ask you the question that I asked Gus. What's the difference between order and oppression, in your opinion?
I really loved the consent. What Guff says, I ran across the house to put some hands up in the chat for that one. Yeah. And to go off of, also what Hash was saying, they know not what they do. And, God, all these lies, all the architecture, all this like idea of order and everything and freedom, I mean, it's incredibly Orwellian. I'm not big fan of all the dude, but 1984,
Yeah.
You believe the lie, but inside you can't, right? The intuition, the vibes don't quite match.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, bud. V, why do you think that, or to you, why does authoritarian architecture feel beautiful?
Okay, I did want to ask, didn't you say something about drawing from like divine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at least what I take from it is I think that there's something to be said about what would I call it? Trying to vocalize it. I think there's something about like a mass consciousness, like we're all connected. And I think that there's something written in our DNA where we remember. And so I think that we see it and it's familiar to us, even though it's bastardized to mean something different. But we still have that connection to it, if that makes sense.
That does make sense, actually. Okay. I like that answer. Thank you very much.
That, if I can, that
Go ahead.
reminds me of if anybody's played Mass Effect, one of my favorite sci-fi games, of yesteryear.
Yeah,
There's a character in it, Legion, who's a member of the oppressed underclass of droids that has risen up and doing their own thing, and they're kind of like seen as like the big baddies for a while, until you meet one, and he says some, like, a lot of the stuff he talks about is like in the collective, and he says, "We are Legion, for we are many." We are all connected. We are all nature, like in this space, like we are nature defending itself. We are identifying, the, for lack of better words, and it's cool, if the shoe fits, we are identifying the disease. We are also in these spaces creating cures. Yeah, we're all connected. You are me. I am you. Like, look at all these different versions. I get so happy to see,
Thank you very much,
It's-
bud.
it's dirty of you, Sludge, to make me wait last.
I actually have a question for both you and Rob.
Oh, at the same time. Oh man, I
Yeah.
have such a response to the prompt though.
That's okay. You can get into it after you answer this question.
I know, but I don't want to lose it.
Okay, well then,
complicated.
fucking get into it then.
Okay, I just want to get it out so I don't lose it. Okay, so yes, it's super fucking Orwellian, as Brand said. And by the way, this answer evolved with every answer, so it was nice that you saved me till last, but it's still the same answer. People want comfort. People want familiarity. We can use symbolism to create familiarity in our lives. If you're a racist, you go out and you see an 88 and you see, oh, my people. If you're not a racist, you go out and you see a pride flag and you're like, oh, my people. And so we use symbolism naturally as humans to find each other, to give each other a sense of comfort or camaraderie without having a direct communication or even not being in the same place at the same time. And so people desire a level of comfort. Now, here's the thing. Recently, something very strange happened in my life, and maybe I'm just a paranoid guy, but I know how computers work. So I said something that I've said for years out in the woods to individuals, but had never said online before a few months back. And I said it online one time, and it was immediately scraped up either by an AI or by a writer directly who worked on the show Dexter. And I heard my words a few months after come out of Peter Dinklage's mouth. And I looked it up. The time that I said it lined up with the filming, or with the before the filming. Like they were still in the production phase when they stole this line from me. And I'm totally cool with it because Peter Dinklage did a great job, but he botched the line. So I'm going to give you the real line. You have 4 seconds without fire. These are the 4 elements of survival. You have 4 seconds without fire. If you lose your heat, you will freeze to death in 4 seconds. You have 4 minutes without air. If you go 4 minutes without air, you are approaching permanent brain damage that you will never recover from. You have 4 days without water. You might be able to make it an extra day and a half off of your own urine. That 4 drops to a 3 if you aren't drinking your own urine. You have 4 weeks without food, your stomach and muscles will begin to eat themselves after 4 weeks of not ingesting a proper balance of sugar and protein and salt. Okay? That's the line that Peter Dinklage absolutely botched in the most recent season of Dexter. It's a great line. I wish and he did an okay job delivering it. It's his writer's fault, not his. Anyway, the point that I am making with this is when these 4 needs are not met, when you go 4 weeks without shelter, when you go 4 weeks without food, you become a rabid animal, because that is what we all are at the end of the day, monkeys on a wet rock. And so we use this hostile architecture and we use this familiarized symbolism to create a sense of what we would call order. But I apologize if I'm shattering your premise when I'm here to tell you that security is an illusion. It doesn't exist. Inconvenience is real, and that's about the closest thing to security that anyone or anything can really have. And the whole subject of this is how velvet collars and soft pressures are baked in to the physical architecture of the world that we exist within, and how it was put there intentionally. That intention didn't formulate from nothing either. So, yeah, I was chomping at the bit a little bit to get that out. I'm happy to take that question for me and Rob now. Thank you for letting me get that out. My tism is satiated.
Okay, no problem. I'm going to ask this question. I would appreciate it if you could let Rob get the first shot at it, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Rob, are we subconsciously addicted to the aesthetics of control?
I don't think we are, because I don't think we take comfort in the architecture of power. Um, Not even fascists do. They're obsessed with blood and soil, right? Like return to the land, be a farmer, homestead or whatever. Like, I don't think it's a like they all avoid those areas of the country because they're too terrified to go there unless they have a weapon with them, right? So I think it might be something else. I could be wrong, but I think it might be something else, maybe more of just like a cynical show of power, show of force. And I don't know, since as we know, fascists can't do art, so they just steal the shit from the mythologized past of like empires, and they just copy and paste that. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I don't know if like us as like the working class, as like regular people, are addicted to that. I think it's been kind of forced on us. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Thank you very much. What about you, Hatch?
Well, repeat it to me one more time. I need to.
Are we subconsciously addicted to the aesthetics of control?
Yes and no. We're consciously addicted to them. We are subconsciously rebelling against ourselves. We've seen a sharp incline of mental health disorders in the United States since the advent of 1994, when the internet hit more than 7 million homes in the US in a single year. Since that day, and I can mark it on any calendar and you can follow any graph. Now, part of this is because reporting became better. It's not that these problems didn't already exist. It's that we were able to see them more. But another part of it was that we created new ones with the advent of this technology, with the architecture of our lives, with our daily planning going from pins and registers and clockwork microwaves and gas stations with turnstile pumps to everything and the sum of all human knowledge on a screen in my hand that goes to space and back so you can hear my words right now. With that change, we invented new types of mental illnesses, and part of it is our conscious addiction to stimuli, combating our subconscious need to survive. And when we see it in our architecture, it's because we've ingrained it into our daily lives. And so we gain even a subconscious level of acceptance on the very thing that we are subconsciously combating, to the point that it is causing emotional distress in ourselves and in our families around us. And I say us because I'm not the only person who's experienced this, and I actually observed it in other people before I experienced it. I just didn't know what I was observing until I felt it for myself, and I hope now that I've said it out loud, anybody here who hasn't recognized it yet can feel it in themselves too. That's what I have to say to that.
Okay. Thank you very much, bud. So, next, for this next segment, we're going to talk about the fascist revival, bringing us from Mussolini's marbles to modern minimalism in our architecture. So, every era reinvents the look of power. The uniforms change, the slogans update, but the blueprints stay the same. Mussolini knew architecture could outlast propaganda. He had stated, "Our buildings must be strong, simple, and enduring." What he meant was, our power must be eternal. And so the fascist aesthetic of the 1930s, which is the marble monoliths, the empty plazas, the severe, harsh lines, became the prototype for what we now call modernism. Clean, efficient, minimal. But strip away the marble, and the ideology remains the same. The EUR district, Explosion Universal di Roma, was Mussolini's vision of the Third Rome, a city built not for the citizens, but for the spectacle. Each building stood in perfect formation, cold and unyielding, like a marble army. Rows of identical arches, monolithic towers, and cavernous plazas created the illusion of purity through repetition. The message was mathematical. Order equals control. It was fascism being rendered in limestone. And when the regime fell, those same principles were recycled. Post-war architects across Europe and America saw beauty in the simplicity and a utility in the uniformity. They didn't see oppression, they saw progress. But the DNA of dominance was right there in the middle of it. Geometry as authority, scale as submission, and simplicity as superiority. The fascist aesthetic became a blank canvas for democracy to paint over, but the shape of the canvas never changed. You walk through a modern tech campus, everything's white, clean, and minimal. The walls are glass, the spaces are open, and there are cameras everywhere, but they call it transparency. That's the modern mutation of fascist architecture, obedience disguised as a collaborative effort. You're not ordered to conform, you're encouraged to. Your badge grants you access into the building, your desk is mobile, your walls don't exist. Freedom has been turned into furniture. The same aesthetics that once glorified the state now glorify the corporation. Efficiency, surveillance, silence are the new virtues of empire. Minimalism has become the religion of capitalism, the ideology of control, reduced to color palettes and product designs. And when you work in a space with no doors and no shadows, you're not liberated, you're illuminated. To be monitored. Corporate design teaches comfort in the exposure. The modern worker lives in a world that Mussolini would have, honestly, had a wet dream over. It's disciplined, ordered, and endlessly productive. And the irony, we're going to call that innovation. See, the fascist ideal of efficiency and control, purity and permanence, it never went anywhere. It was absorbed and aestheticized and globalized. From Mussolini's marbles to Le Corbusier's concrete, from Spear's stone to Apple's glass, the same visual grammar persists through time. Power gets stripped of ornament, and dominance gets disguised as a function. See, modern architecture flattened individuality in favor of uniform perfection in the forms of brutalism, minimalism, and an international style, and they all spring from the same seed, industrial obedience. Even democracy's monuments now mimic dictatorship's forms. Government buildings, corporate towers, luxury housing developments, they all share a single design DNA. It's the geometry of exclusion. The clean facade hides dirty hands. The bright lobby hides dark intent. What was once marble propaganda has become market-friendly modernism, or fascism without flags. See, the architecture of the 21st century didn't escape fascism. It perfected it. It learned how to erase ideology through aesthetic. You can't protest a building that looks neutral. You can't accuse a tower of tyranny when it's labeled sustainable. But neutrality is just obedience with better branding. The next time you step into a glass monument of progress, look for the reflections. You'll find Mussolini in them staring back at you. I'll start this one off with brand. Can an aesthetic ever be cleansed of its original political roots?
I don't, not completely, you know. No, I mean, like you can try, like, you know, to no end to separate the art from the artist, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you can never completely, you know. Um, so I, you know, I would say no.
Okay.
Or yeah.
Thank you very much, bud. Ang, how do corporate spaces train obedience?
Well, I mean, you mentioned the 24/7 um, surveillance. Like that's usually an aspect of corporate spaces these days, and has been for quite a while. Even when cubicles started back in the '70s, probably. And
Yeah.
a way to have all the workers out in the open, and you could walk by at any time and see exactly what anybody was doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, bud. V, I'll ask you the same question. How do you think that corporate spaces train obedience?
Lack of individualism.
Lack of individualism.
That that was also inspired by what you were talking about with the modern architecture. I think back and it goes back to, like, to me, white supremacy, ultimately, or white supremacy.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the different cultures across the world, you're going to see color and pattern. You're going to get spices, individualism. That's what it's stripping from you.
I like that answer. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Rob, do you think that aesthetic can ever be cleansed of its political roots?
Um, no, no, I don't think it can. It'll always have callbacks, and there's always an intent with stuff. Like maybe there's elements that you could incorporate, but direct homages or throwbacks like we have, Yeah, that's never going to happen. I don't think. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you very much, bud. I'm going to pull this image up here on the background real quick so that you can see behind the Speaker of the House's seat on the right hand side of his shoulder is the Roman fasces against the wall. Just want everybody to keep that in mind. Hatch, are we living inside the architecture of the new version of fascism?
I wouldn't call it new. Evil doesn't invent new things. It just rehashes the same old 7 fucking dirty tricks, right? It innovates how it uses its same old dirty tricks, but it doesn't invent new ones. It's evil. It's dumb, and it only wants one thing. How do we end up in this situation? It's Orwellian. It's definitely Orwellian. But one time my biology teacher, he told me a word of wisdom. He said transparency is what stops mad scientists from is what stops scientists from becoming mad scientists. And to an extent, he's right. When you're dealing with dangerous chemicals or sensitive biologies, and you were to go today and look up, say, Gabriel Torch on YouTube and see how they're using graphene to graft brains in jars to AI servers, yeah, mad scientists happen even with transparency. So how correct were those words of wisdom looking back? On the other end of that, the obedience is baked into the culture of work. And it's baked in ways that people aren't trained to recognize. But if you look closely, you can see it. Two main weaponizations that large businesses and government use to build into this corporate space this oppressive nature is tactics that are used by enablers to protect abusers. I'm not going to confront the person who grabbed my ass at work. I have to take it to HR. This is a flying monkey tactic used by narcissists. You're triangulating for the sake of the business. And if the person who is making more money is the one that is defending the claim, then of course HR is going to protect the business as an enabler to an abuser that they are. On the other side of this, the second thing that they do is normalizing psychopathic and sociopathic behaviors, things that only come out during the natural survival instincts of human beings. If we live in a society where fruit is plentiful and everyone has fruit, we don't fight over fruit. But if we live in a society where we are constantly told, aka capitalism, from day one, that there's only enough apples for 3 out of 30 of you to eat today, and you have to be a gold, silver, or bronze apple eater to be an apple eater, then you have your oppression built in from childhood. It's systematic and it's self-perpetuating, because these children who are being forced to compete for their apples and ranked for their apples uh, they're too young to even realize that this is what's happening to them. And by the time they get old enough to realize it, those in power have already denied their health care and flooded their neighborhoods with addiction so heavily that they're dead before anybody is willing to listen to them long enough to be more than just a crazy person in a wheelchair babbling outside of the old folks' home. And so, yeah, the oppression is baked in by normalizing psychopathy and by normalizing behaviors that enablers use to protect abusers. It's inherent throughout our entire culture, and it is a direct byproduct of the sociopathy of capitalism.
Thank you very much, bud. Gus, I'll ask you the same question. Do you think we're living inside the architecture of a new form of fascism?
Absolutely, and I think it's been a long time building up. I mentioned in the chat earlier that I really feel like white culture is really just the cycle of the Roman Empire repeating itself. We don't do a new thing; we do the same thing over and over again in a changing world. And yeah, I feel like we're arriving there in this country in particular right now.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So let me pull up this next image really quick because I feel it is pertinent to the conversation. So I want to preface this by saying that symbols are shortcuts that are used for power. They have a tendency to bypass logic and go straight for your subconscious. And they tell us how to feel before we even get a chance to really understand why. And let me get this expanded. These symbols that you see in the background here, every empire, every ideology, every corporation uses them. Not because people read history, but because people respond to the pattern. And the most effective propaganda doesn't have to say a word. It's already been carved above every doorway. So with this segment, we're going to decode the symbols that have been hiding in plain sight, the icons of hierarchy that decorate the temples of democracy. We're going to start with the ancient symbols of obedience. So the fasces, the one in the top left, the eagle, the obelisk, which you will see everywhere. It's the giant fucking pillar standing in the national courtyard. The laurel wreath. Each of these things carries a genetic memory of empire. For example, the fasces stands for unity through force. A bundle of rods bound around an axe symbolizes collective strength under a single authority. It decorated Roman courts and Nazi regalia, and today it sits quietly behind the speaker's chair in the U.S. House of Representatives, which is this image here. The eagle, once Zeus's messenger, is now the herald of empires. It watches from currency and seals and war medals, its wings always outstretched, not in peace, but in domination. The obelisk, a vertical monument of conquest, was an ancient Egyptian solar symbol, which was co-opted by Rome and then rebranded in Washington at the Washington Monument. It's a phallic memorial to hierarchy. And then the laurel wreath, Rome's badge of victory, as it were, now a universal logo of achievement in universities. The original participation trophy of empire, if you will. And these aren't just decorations, they're psychological anchors, reminders of continuity, of inherited power. And when the same iconography appears across centuries and regimes, I mean, it's not a coincidence. That's a direct lineage that is hiding in plain sight. Now, I want to get into the Masonic and Imperial overlap, and this is where things get a little tinfoil, so please bear with me. The foundations of the United States were laid not just in politics, but in geometry. Many of its founders were documented Freemasons, steeped in symbolic systems older than the nation itself. The compass and square, pyramids, the all-seeing eye, they're each encoded with ritual meaning about hierarchy and knowledge and control. The all-seeing eye above the unfinished pyramid on the dollar bill wasn't meant for the people, it was meant for the initiated, an emblem of divine oversight and secret governance. The Capitol's cornerstone was laid in a Masonic ceremony. The city's streets were a grid that aligns with sacred numerology, and the architecture itself operates like a living sigil, a spell made of stone and geometry and intention. And to this day, those symbols blur the line between democracy and priesthood. See, citizens worship transparency while the powerful work and worship in secrecy. What began as a spiritual mysticism became a political language, essentially a way to say we know and you don't. And it blurs the line between conspiracy and continuity. Every public building doubles as a classroom. And when you walk beneath its symbols and internalize their meanings, you call it patriotism. You don't have to understand the fascist to feel its weight. You don't have to believe in the all-seeing eye to feel watched by it. You don't have to know Rome's history to sense the hierarchy that was carved into the marble. Architecture and symbolism work together as silent teachers. They condition reverence and normalize submission. A courtroom framed by columns makes justice look divine and above human. A national seal topped with an eagle implies omnipotence. And a monument shaped like a weapon says that power is protection. Every modern corporate logo borrows from the same vocabulary: circles of unity, wings of progress, pyramids of hierarchy. We've essentially swapped empire for enterprise at this point. The continuity of design is the continuity of control. Symbols don't fade, they just evolve. And each evolution hides the same message in a softer light. You're a part of something greater, but don't question it. See, every symbol is a seed placed in the public mind. You can pull down a statue, but if the idea it stood for is carved into the courthouse, then it's still standing. We mistake familiarity for safety, and we think that these symbols protect us, but they don't. They remind us who's in charge of us. The real monuments of empire aren't the ones in museums. They're the ones that you walk beneath every day without looking up. I'll start this one off with Aang. What symbols of power do you see every day that you barely notice?
That's one. That's a tricky one. Um, have to get back to you on that. I have to like walk around and start noticing them. But you know, I like the fascists, like the the eagle, like all the symbols all around us. It's it's like fish being in water. You know, the fish doesn't realize that it's in water. It's just swimming.
Yeah, how do you describe to a fish what wet feels like?
Right.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Well, when you do see it, please do come back and tell me what you see most often. Brand, I'm going to ask you the same question. What symbols of power do you see every day that you barely notice?
Man, man, the other thing I wanted to add to that, like the Plato's cave, the cave allegory, it's so hard, but it's all encompassing. Like I'm sure if you start looking and you get the oh my gosh, 1 second, it's windy out here. Um, you'll find it at no end in every aspect of this society that we find ourselves in, right? That's kind of by design, because they want to make it seem as though this is it, right? That we are at the end of a history, that all that you see before you is all that it will ever be, and like we figured it out, this is the best way to do it, right? That's all bullshit. It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
Job security.
Yep, absolutely.
That's freedom, right?
Yep.
Oh.
Thank you very much, bud. Gus, are national symbols meant to unite people or to dominate them, in your opinion?
I mean, I think that the initial intention is to unite people, and that it doesn't turn out that way because some people are seeking power. Because some individuals are hungry for power, they're always going to strive to take control of that symbolism and use it to control the people.
Yeah, I would agree. Thank you very much, bud. Hatch, I know that you pay attention. What symbols of power do you see every day?
Well, the ones I believe at bare minimum 3 out of 5 of the ones, but I believe in some form or factor all 5 of the symbols on your screen are on most of our money. Pretty much any dollar bill between a 1 to 100, you're going to find that eye, that laurel, and that mason compass and ruler.
And the fascists.
So the other two, I don't remember for a fact what bills they're on, if they're on any bills, but they are used in banking when labeling tender. I know for a fact on that one. The idea of, oh man, okay, let me go a different direction in this one. Let's get a little US historical with it. Stars and bars,
Mm-hmm.
right? Stars and bars grab hearts and minds. That's what I want to say. Stars and bars grab hearts and minds. The beauty of symbolism is that you're putting an entire idea into a pictorial image. This is faster than reading for anyone to comprehend. This is faster than math for anyone to comprehend, but you can put reading and math in the symbol to better convey the idea you're trying to give. But here's the reality of it. Every symbol, after the first few generations or iterations of its original meaning, the meaning does two things. The first thing it does is it cheapens and changes through the telephone game. I said to you in your ear that I need to make a phone call, and 14 students later, little Miss Susie says there's a mouse on the roof. The other thing that it does is it gets co-opted for other means. So, you and I might agree on something. You and I both fucking hate fascists, but at your core, you're a communist and I'm a socialist. This is a big difference between us. I think that socialism shouldn't reach fully realized communism because I think that there should be some type of meritocracy. My point is, I don't want to go too far into that conversation. That's a whole different episode. My my point is that the same thing happens with symbolism. The same thing happens with symbolism. This group and this group of people both share a likening for that symbol. But one group is larger than the other and has a more following. And so that symbol disseminates through their culture more often than the smaller culture. And so that symbol gains their meaning more than the other smaller culture's meaning. And its original meaning, the one that was shared by both of them, gets lost along the way. Okay? Now, this is where shit gets tricky because this is where we strap on our tinfoil hats. There are groups of people who keep history of these symbols and what they mean and where they come from. And these are the same people that keep history of their family trees. And they are all up in the inner workings of nepotism that propel this great fraud of symbolism that uses hostile architecture and hostile environmental pressures, soft pressures, and velvet collars to inject the threats carried by these symbols into our everyday lives by letting us know that the seal, that holographic image on the back of our social security card when you shine it at the right angle in the light, is their way of saying, we've owned you since before you were born. We owned your parents. We owned your grandparents. And we're so rich and we're so connected and we are so tied to our shallow ass little fucking Habsburg looking goddamn family gene pool tree of old money blood that we don't need a social security card. Yeah, family fucking circle. So I never thought to fucking swim outside of it. Anyway, I'm gonna land my plane before I get pissed off.
Thank you very much, bud. Rob, do you think that national symbols are meant to unite people or dominate them?
Oh yeah, they're meant for control. This is tying. This is why I think fascism is just a nation level cult. Because if you can condition people into being part of a group, Um, they'll close their eyes to a lot of shit, and they'll fall in line a lot of times. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bud. And V, I have a very specific question for you. How do we redesign public spaces for truth instead of illusion?
Oh wow, you gave me a big one. Um, Damn. Well, redesign. I mean, I mean, my honest opinion would be we get rid of everything and start over from scratch. um, because I mean, our whole everything is like our whole society, our country is founded on white supremacy and on the patriarchy. And if we really want truth, we would get rid of that. We would dismantle the systems. We would start over because we have it all wrong.
Yeah. It ties back into the question that I ask people all the time. If we're trying to fix things and make things better, are we just going back to 5 minutes before Donald Trump, or are we trying to build something that doesn't allow someone like him to exist?
Exactly. No, I agree. Going back 5 minutes isn't good enough. Like I had said in the chat when you had mentioned that, I believe that the Democrats are they're also fascists. I mean, they're
Mm-hmm.
not doing anything to stop it. It's like they placate. They're what is the term that I'm looking for? They're controlled
Two bloody,
opposition.
two bloodied wings of the same dying bird.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So, this
Hmm.
final segment, we're going to talk about reclaiming our skyline and designing it for liberation. So, if architecture can be used to dominate, then it can also be used to heal. Every structure tells a story, so it's time that we start telling new ones. For too long, we've mistaken scale for strength and permanence for progress, but liberation doesn't need skyscrapers. It needs spaces that breathe. It needs spaces that belong to everyone. So, in this segment, we're going to reimagine the skyline, not as a monument of power, but as a map for freedom. When the blueprint becomes collective, architecture transforms into resistance. Community led designs replace elite commissions, and accessibility replaces intimidation. Oh no, it died. Um, do the damn thing. Buildings of liberation are participatory and not performative in nature. They invite the community to co create rather than simply inhabit a space. Think of the difference between a courthouse and a community center. One demands silence and the other invites sound. One says, obey here, and the other says, belong here. Around the world, liberation architecture already exists. In indigenous longhouses built for consensus and ceremony instead of hierarchy. In favela cooperatives in Brazil, where residents construct their own homes and defy state neglect. Hell, here in the States, mutual aid hubs that are built in abandoned lots, which transform scarcity into solidarity. Each of these redefines what a building is for. Not to impress people, but to empower them. True freedom is built horizontally. Walls that connect instead of divide. Doors that welcome instead of guard. See, the cure for fascist architecture isn't demolition, it's decolonization. We don't destroy history to erase it, we rebuild it so that we can tell the truth. Indigenous and non-Western architecture offer blueprints for balance instead of dominance. Circular structures echo equality, no corners to hide authority in. Organic forms follow the rhythm of land and not the rigidity of rule. In many indigenous cultures, buildings are living beings, extensions of the community, and not objects to own. Their impermanence is intentional. So what fascism calls weakness, they call respect. And when we design with the earth instead of against it, we rebuild the spiritual contract that empire broke long ago. Architecture stops being a monument to ego and becomes a conversation with existence itself. Decolonizing design means unlearning the worship of symmetry and rediscovering the beauty of adaptation. It means admitting that the straight line was never progress, it was conquest. Our future monuments aren't going to scrape the sky. If anything, they'll touch the soul. They'll grow food instead of fear. They'll harvest light instead of casting shadows. Imagine monuments that heal instead of haunt. A solar farm that doubles as a memorial to environmental activists. A public kitchen that feeds anyone who walks in, no questions asked. Or a park designed to restore ecosystems and spirits alike. These are the blueprints of liberation. They honor not the powerful, but the people. A society is remembered not by how high it was built, but by how well it cared. And we have to stop building for legacy and start building for life. See, we've spent centuries trapped beneath monuments to control people. Maybe it's time to stop looking up at their symbols and start building around them. The architecture of liberation isn't about defiance, it's about care. It's about learning that the walls we build for each other don't have to separate us. They can shelter us. Reclaiming the skyline doesn't mean tearing it down, it means rewriting it. Every rooftop garden, every mutual aid space, every tent city that refuses to disappear, it's an act of architectural rebellion. Because freedom doesn't live in marble halls. It grows where people build together. So my question, I'll start off with Hatch for this one because I see his hand up. What would liberation architecture look like in your community?
Fucking thank you so much. I have been yelling about this since the day I joined TikTok. Start a garden. Everybody start a garden. Grow food, not lawns. Drop food, not bombs. I'll say it again. Grow food, not lawns. Drop food, not bombs. No, you are not going to get enough potatoes and tomatoes out of your backyard to support yourself. And no, I don't expect everybody to become a farmer. I say the word garden specifically. But you see, community gardens fight capitalism in a unique way. You now have a reason to leave your house. At the end of World War II, when FDR started instituting a bunch of social safety net programs, like the food stamp program, because food insecurity was a problem for the GIs, we had these things called victory gardens. And it was very common for soldiers and veterans to just walk by and pick fruit out of someone's yard. And it was seen as a positive thing, a patriotic thing. We aren't beyond our capability to do that again. As humans, we aren't beyond our capability to have a church garden and a school garden and a post office garden, and it's just a little garden on the side of all of our civil buildings and on the sides of our homes, and it's not a lot, but I'll tell you what it does do. It yanks millions and millions and millions of dollars back from companies like Walmart that are exploiting us every day. And we don't need government permission. We can just do it. We can just do it. I highly encourage everyone to look up the Three Sisters growing methods. It's an indigenous growing method, corn, beans, and squash, legumes. But yeah, get what you need out of the earth, and it's a war of culture. What we're fighting is a war of culture. I can't say it, and our enemy is rape culture. Our champion is a culture of connectivity and care. Our champion is our ability to not just seek punitive revenge, but to seek rehabilitative justice. To say, I'm not going to kill all the Nazis, I'm going to love them because I'm cruel and I want them to live with themselves and who they've been every day for the rest of their lives.
I love your fervor. I will not allow a Nazi to live, but that's my thing.
I want to put him in a dark deep box, but let me tell you, I'll do this allegory one more time. And I know I landed my plane, but I'm picking it right back up off the ground for this last hit. I can go outside right now, and I did this summer. I can go outside and I can plant these tomato seeds, and I can water them, and I can make an effort to water them every single day. And at the end of summer, I can go out there and I can pick those tomatoes, and I can take one of those tomatoes and I can take a nice big fat juicy bite out of that tomato, and I can taste the life that I am given by that tomato, the vitamin C, the simple sugars rushing through my veins, and the joy and the connection with Mother Earth that I have. Or I can load a Glock and I can go out into my backyard and I can put as many bullets into that hole as I fucking want, and nothing will ever grow there.
Freedom seeds.
In freedoms, seeds, hilarious. Hatch, I love you. I love you.
Thank you, Hatch.
I love you all.
I love you too, buddy. Gus, do you think we can unlearn beauty that's been built to dominate?
I mean, yes, and I think in the same way as we are finding ourselves learning many other things right now, is that we have to do that by deconstructing what's already here, by looking at it analytically in every detail and saying, this is how this affected me.
Okay. Thank you very
But I
much.
think it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Collective work and time.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Rob, what would liberation architecture look like in your community?
Well, architecture. I'm gonna add infrastructure to that as well. Um, Decentralizing um, grocery locations, like having neighborhood markets instead of just one Walmart or one IGA on the other side of town that you have to get into your car um, to get to. So that third spaces, like more town squares, pretty much everything. If you're familiar with strong towns,
Mm-hmm.
everything they say, and a lot of motherfucking trains. You know, just light rail everywhere, and walkable cities and more decentralized. Um, yeah, like because that's another symbol of oppression. Every time you get in your car, you know, the, it's just another way they control us. So
Absolutely. Thank you very much, bud. V, what would liberation architecture look like in your community?
So I agree with what everybody else is saying, but to add on to it, I think fruit trees that people could just grab from, native plants and wildflowers instead of lawns or whatever other rubbish we have around here. Um, just a lot more community like daycares where we help each other with childcare, community libraries where you take a book, leave a book. That's what I can think of off the top of my head. Just a lot more community.
Okay. Thank you very much. Brand, I had a specific question for you. What do we build when we stop building for power?
We build bridges. Not just like I'm not talking about just infrastructure, but to each other, to everything. You know, we build bridges.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I also have another point on infrastructure, but I don't want to take up anybody else's turn. But if you want to come back to me, I have one more thing.
Well, I'm going to get through this ending monologue, and then I'll open it up for discussion on the topic. Okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Sorry.
So every skyline is a confession. Every monument is a memory of who was allowed to build and who wasn't. We've walked through centuries of stone sermons, temples of empire, domes of democracy, towers of industry, all telling the same story. Power looks like permanence. But permanence is an illusion. Even marble erodes and monuments crumble. The architecture of control has always depended on one thing: our belief in its inevitability. And that belief is the real prison. We were raised beneath facades that whispered obedience. We call them beautiful because we were told they were. But beauty built on submission isn't beauty, it's hypnosis. The first step in breaking Empire's spell is learning to see the walls for what they are. Not barriers of stone, but ideas, hardened over time and reinforced by reputation, polished by propaganda. The second step is remembering that architecture isn't destiny, it's language. And language is supposed to evolve, and we can speak new words. When we build for care, we create monuments that feed instead of flaunt. And when we design for inclusion, we reshape the geometry of, oh, get out of here, motherfucker, of belonging. And when we raise structures from compassion instead of conquest, the skyline becomes a song. Again, but one that's been sung in every voice and not just the loudest. The Empire's architects wanted immortality, but we don't need immortality. We need integrity. They build towers to escape the earth, but we will build homes that honor it. They carved their names into marble, but we'll plant gardens that speak for generations. Because history isn't defined by who built the tallest monument. It's defined by who rebuilt after that monument fell. And make no mistake, they all fall. The only question is what we raise in their place. Every city has ghosts, but ghosts can guide as well as haunt. The task before us isn't to erase history, it's to redeem it. To take the blueprints left behind by Empire and draft something worthy of humanity. Architecture is prophecy made physical, so what prophecy are we going to leave behind? Will it be more walls, more monuments to ego? Or will it be bridges, shelters, and open doors? We don't have to worship the skyline anymore. We can rewrite it. We can reclaim it. And we can remember that the most revolutionary act is not tearing down the old world. It's building the new one where everyone fits inside. I want to thank everybody for joining me on another episode of Interviewing Humanity Between the Seasons. As always, I've been Sludge Knuckle, and you've been amazing. So go out there and build something worth believing in. I'm going to open up the panel for discussion. If anybody wants to come up and chat, please feel free.
Okay, I'm